Hey guys, it's Bryan. It's been a while since I have done a live video. Every once in a while I feel the need to whip this group back into shape, crack the whip, you know what I mean? What do I mean by that? This group, Practical Mold Avoidance, has a very specific purpose. We talk about Eric Johnson style mold avoidance. Why? Because it works. That's why. So today, you guys, I'm going to cover a couple different topics with you, but I want to remind everybody, if you haven't yet, please read the pinned posts and the files section. And if you promise to keep watching for this whole video, I'm going to show you a real live tarantula. You guys got that? The first topic I want to cover is Simca asked me to go live, so this is his fault. But I want to talk about money. When you do mold avoidance, you need to make sure you don't run out of money. So when you get started, it is not a good idea to go out and buy an RV and waste all your money. It depends on how much means you have. If you have $10 million in the bank, go ahead and go experiment with RVs. If you don't have a lot of money, save your money. This is all about financial sustainability. You guys can check out my podcast, and I have some podcasts on financial sustainability. But that is a very important thing. So if you guys have any comments or questions on financial sustainability and doing mold avoidance in a financially sustainable way, please post them and we'll talk about that. I want to emphasize that Eric style mold avoidance says that it is extremely important to get away from very tiny amounts of toxic mold. Some people might say that's impossible. How can you get away from extremely toxic amounts or extremely tiny amounts of mold? The world is full of them. Yes, well, the world is full of them. But, oh well, that's just the way it is. I mean, if the world was full of nuclear radiation, wouldn't that still kill you? That's actually an example that Eric uses that I like. So, I have a moldy RV. I'm whispering this, but also a moldy house now that I'm trying to get away from. And I was just dying to get out of town, and I went to Phoenix. And even though Phoenix isn't the best area, I feel like it was a real recharge for my body because I was getting away from the tiny amounts of mold toxins that were hurting me here. We do appear to get sensitized to the kind of mold that made us sick. So when we get sensitized, that particular mold might be a bigger problem for us. This is why my latest lesson, you guys, and if you keep watching, I will show you the tarantula. I have a real tarantula that I caught that I'm going to show you guys just to make you guys watch. But the real lesson that I have learned is that your house is the most important thing to keep not moldy. Why? Well, because your house is where you get all of your exposure and where you get sensitized and where you stay on the power curve. So you have to live in a place that's not moldy. I am really honing in on Eric Johnson's concept of the MECU, the Mobile Environmental Containment Unit. In other words, having a safe place that doesn't have any mold at all. And I am realizing this is just about the most important tool anyone can have. When we build our house or settle on a final property, one of the things that I'm going to try to do is have one of those huge gargantuan metal garages or barns, and then build out little smaller interior structural spaces, not non-structural spaces actually, like little foam huts or little wood cabins or something inside there. The neighbors will all think that it's just a garage because I'll have a regular house on the property. That'll be like my MECU. And I wanted to show you guys my truck real quick. When I got this truck, I always thought to myself, oh, there's those crazy people that sleep in the back of their truck, those mold avoiders. I'll never have to do that. And then I've had to do it way more than I thought. And I am back in the truck now, and I notice that when I am in the truck, I am a different person, you guys. I am a different person. For those of you guys who just joined, just keep watching because I'm going to show you guys a living live tarantula in a minute. You have to keep watching, though, or you're not going to get to see him. So even though my truck is, the window has blown out of my truck, I have a new one on order, but it took forever. I still sleep in the back of my truck, and to get away from tiny amounts of mold is what this game is all about. And I know it's hard to do that because there's mold everywhere and there's mold in many buildings. But I really think that Eric Johnson's MECU concept is super important. So our winter plans, people are asking what are our winter plans. We're going to try to stay here in the mountains as long as we can, even though it is cold. We want to keep the kids, as stable as possible, but I'm realizing that you really do have to have a winter shelter plan in order to stay. So I just added you guys will see how fancy my setup is here. This is how I open my truck bed. I just unpeel these pieces of tape. See what people are willing to do to get clear of mold. Do you guys, the new people watching, do you guys think I'm crazy that I'm willing to live in a tarped over truck camper when I don't have to? I mean, it's not like I, have to live inside this. I could live somewhere else. But this group and our approach is based on the premise that living in a extremely mold-free environment makes a big difference. It's an exponential difference. It's like, have you guys ever heard the joke, can you be kind of pregnant? Like, you can't be kind of pregnant, right? Well, you can't be kind of clear of mold. You have to be really clear. And I'm realizing that a big distinction that I didn't realize until now is that your living space and your sleeping space is the primary place that must be the most clear. If you have to go to the store or you have to go wherever, your living place and your sleeping place. And that's why a MECU is so important, a MECU being a metal place that you can sleep. So I was in a city yesterday and I added this 1.5-inch piece of EPS foam from Lowe's. It's rated R5.8, and I put that on the bottom of my truck bed because after years of experience sleeping in my truck, I can tell you guys that what makes it cold is not the air in your sleeping space. It is being in contact with a cold surface. So I have 1.5-inch layer of foam, 2 thermarests, and a couple of sleeping bags, and then my sleeping bag to keep me isolated from the cold, and I sleep much, much better now. This has made a huge difference, by the way. This piece of foam, I recommend this. It's called Insel Foam, INSULFOAM. It has a plastic layer on this side and a foil layer on the other side. The plastic layer helps keep the fumes of the foam out. And by the way, I didn't react to this at all, which was really nice. If you guys keep watching, I'm going to show you a live tarantula in a minute, by the way. I know the aluminum side is supposed to face up, but I just didn't want to do it that way because I didn't react to this plastic side. So we are talking about a MECU, and I, after doing 2 years of mold avoidance, I know that I'm not the most experienced one out here, but I do have 2 years of experience. I will say that having a clear place to sleep is incredibly important, and a clear place to live if your place gets moldy. I really am starting to like the simplicity of the truck camper because it is so simple and all metal, and I can hose it out and it does not retain contamination. I was talking to a very experienced mold avoider named Karen yesterday, and she was telling me how she doesn't even have insulation in her house and she just uses a wood-burning stove. And a lot of people might think it's just crazy not to have insulation at all. But the more you do this, the more you realize that complicated things like an RV, where there's walls and windows and insulation and ductwork, has a much higher chance and inevitably will 100% get moldy. It's just a matter of time. So back to our topic of thinking about money. This camper shell has been a better investment than the RV. Now, I do understand that people need a place to live, so I'm still glad that I bought the RV because I have a wife and kids and they're not going to live in a camper shell. But in terms of usefulness for mold avoidance, the camper shell is absolutely the best tool possible. I am looking at buying more of a large metal truck camper that has some amenities, but the more I research it, the more I like my simple little truck camper, it just has nothing that can go wrong. I could literally empty this out, hose it out, replace everything in it for a couple $100 in a couple hours and push the reset button. So I just can't emphasize enough, you guys, how important it is to have a MECU that is a 100% clear area to sleep. You can't be kinda pregnant, and you can't be kinda clear of mold. Maybe later on in recovery, but for me personally, maybe you guys have had a different story. I find it's really important. I'm also noticing, you guys, that I am a lot less reactive to outdoor air now, which is amazing. I drove to Phoenix yesterday, and Phoenix and New Mexico don't feel as different as they used to. They just feel like normal places. But I am becoming more reactive to certain kind of bad molds. So the longer you do like indoor molds and indoor exposures, so the longer you do avoidance, your body will start to communicate to you which molds matter and which ones don't. I'm looking at my list of things I wanted to cover here. You guys who are just tuning in now, you can rewind this later and listen to the beginning. So let's see here. Yeah, Simca had wanted me to make a video about starting your mold avoidance without spending a lot of money. I know people don't want to give up the creature comforts and they want to rush right out and buy an RV. I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would suggest saving your money and making it last and waiting till you have some mold avoidance skills before you do that. Unless you're rich. If you're rich, then whatever. This is all in relation to what means you have, because things are going to change. Your housing isn't going to work out as good as you thought it was, and you're going to need to change your plans. All right, I'm going to show you guys one of the benefits of doing mold avoidance in the desert, and that is that I was able to catch a tarantula for my kids to play with this morning. We're not going to hurt it. We're going to let him go, but for right now, unless he got out of this container, let's see. Oh, he's still in there. I'm going to bring him over to the sun so we can see him. And I'm trying to get away from this moldy house that's killing me. Okay, you guys want to see a tarantula? Alright, let's look at him. Come on, buddy. Would you guys say that this is a benefit or a drawback of doing mold avoidance? You guys want to comment and vote? Benefit or drawback of doing mold avoidance? I can tell you guys that I have encountered many creatures because I've been living mostly outside for the last 2 years, and it's kind of cool, you know? You see stuff outside. So yeah, I was showing you guys this tarantula. I'll give you guys one last look at him. This is a little guy I caught for my kids this morning. I can't really tell if I'm focused on him because my sunglasses are on. There we go. He's about the size, he's about 4 inches long. Okay, so unless you guys have any questions, anybody have any questions? This is a live video, so you can have questions. But for the people who are new to our group, I want to emphasize that the approach that, so let me back up a minute. This group is getting pretty large and it's getting harder for us to keep the group on track. So I'm going to pound on this message in my live videos so people understand. But our group is based on a very specific approach to mold avoidance that has worked for a lot of us after everything else has failed. And I'm not going to let the group turn into just any old mold group, like what kind of mold remediator do you use. You have to think of Eric's style mold avoidance as kind of like a Lord of the Rings journey of discovery. You don't know everything. It's going to take you a long time to know everything, and it's a lot different than what you thought. I am going on 2 years now in mold avoidance, and because I write books on alternative medicine for a living, I've also been spending a lot more time than a lot of you guys have on researching mold avoidance. And I can tell you that even now, like I was looking back over my message, and I've exchanged over 5,000 private messages with one of the most knowledgeable mold avoidance mentors out there. And I can tell you even now that I would still only consider myself a high intermediate mold avoider. And so don't come to this group thinking you have something to teach us. Don't come to this group thinking that you know the answer. Don't come to this group thinking that the other stuff you've heard of in the mold world is accurate. Come to our group thinking that you're a student beginning a PhD program that's going to take you 4 years. And there are some people who are the PhD professors, and there are some people who are the PhD assistant professors, and there are some people who are the students who sit in the chairs and learn. And I know a lot of you guys are just as far along as me, and I'm not elevating myself above anyone. There's at least 50 people in the group that know just as much as I do, maybe 100 people. But for the people who are new, this is a very specific message. Okay, I'm gonna see if anybody has any questions. Lauren, drawback, cool from a distance. I'm gonna go back here. I think the tarantulas are cool. Jealous, I haven't seen one yet. Yeah, I have seen 3 tarantulas so far in New Mexico. So not very many, given that we've lived here for the better part of a year. Anybody have any questions or comments or things they would like to hear me talk about, so I can keep wasting your time? I just got back. So the 2 major projects on my mind right now are moving our family away from wood in housing. I'm not interested in building houses out of wood anymore and living in wooden houses, because as I mentioned, it's extremely important to keep your primary living space clear of mold. Can you do that with wood? Yeah, you can. Is it easy or likely? No, it's not. So I'm looking into custom building some different metal trailer options for my family. I already have my metal MECU that I showed you guys. That means Mobile Environmental Containment Unit. It's just like a metal trailer or camper shell that you can sleep in. And I'm looking into buying some real estate that maybe already has a home on it that we might not live in, and getting one of those large metal garages or barns, because those large metal garages and barns are low cost, and they don't have to meet building code, and they regularly do have living quarters in them. So it's not unusual if a county planner or someone stops by for them to see that you have a playhouse in there, a guest bedroom in there. They don't have to know that you guys are sleeping in there or whatever. So that's kind of the plan that I'm honing in on. I will not directly insulate the barn or garage because that's too much trouble. I will just use it as a privacy shelter, a wind shelter, and a rain shelter, even if it leaks a little bit. And I will build sort of alternative structures inside of it. People are already doing this. I've found a couple properties that have massive, like 5,000 square foot barns, and they have workshops and guest bedrooms and little mini kitchens. So this isn't something that's out of the ordinary. For those of you guys just tuning in, we covered some really important topics. Please, when I am done with this, I will post this on the group page. Please rewind it and watch it from the beginning. And I guess while I'm waiting for you guys to throw out some questions, I will go show you guys the tarantula again, because I think a tarantula is a way to keep people watching and get my ratings up so I can attract major sponsors like Nike and Reebok and Coca-Cola. Because I think now that I have 11 whole viewers on here, it's very likely that I will be able to attract some sort of huge corporate sponsor. Maybe even like get paid a couple $1 million for my 11 viewers. The reason there's only 11 viewers is because 350,000 chronic fatigue and Lyme sufferers are not on our group, and they're still sick and going and wasting all their money at doctors while I get to play with tarantulas. Alright, so here's the tarantula. I'm going to try to get him on here so I can show him to you. Come on, buddy. Oh, I guess I can show you guys what I'm doing. Here's my little tarantula pet that I caught for my kids. Don't worry, we're not going to hurt him. We're going to let him go. We keep our rule is we keep our wildlife friends for 1 or 2 days. Sometimes the kids will even research what to feed them and take care of them a little bit, and then we let them go. Although my son does have a permanent bearded dragon. There we go, I got him now. There you go. There's our little latest addition to the family. Little tarantula guy. I don't know if that's a good zoom on him or not because I can't see because my sunglasses are on. What do you think, bud? You like being in our family, or you want to go home? I will put him back in his container here. There he is. This guy was just greeting me this morning. He's pretty hairy. He's pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna look and see if there's any questions. I guess the tarantula actually didn't get me any sponsors because now I'm only down to 7 viewers and I had 11. So note to self, tarantulas are not popular. That's pretty funny. Let's see. How long do you need to practice strict avoidance to get a full reset? Excellent question, Matthew. That question is probably the most important question and also the most complicated one. Eric Johnson talks about getting high on the power curve, which is basically like your resistance and your tolerance for mold. And it took me about 18 months of extremely strict avoidance in order to get even on the power curve at all. And I know that might kind of sound depressing, but you guys have to remember that I was bedridden and saying goodbye to my family. So spending 18 months to get 80% of my health back actually doesn't really feel that bad to me. And it wasn't that big of a deal. Now that I am high enough on the power curve, the most important things are sleeping in a good area. Matthew, if you rewind this video, you will see a discussion of where I sleep and why it's important. And then sleep, it all boils down to where you sleep and where you live. If you can live and sleep in a good place, you can not do as much strict avoidance elsewhere. So I would say strict avoidance in your living space and in your vehicle, or I say vehicle, but where you sleep. And of course, outdoor toxins matter too. This is a little bit of an advanced discussion, assuming that people understand outdoor toxins, because you can't live in bad outdoor toxins or you will never get better. I want some kind of safe shed or something, can't figure out what to get yet. Sarah, Sarah, I would give you one piece of advice on a safe structure is to do it on wheels, because mold avoiders tend to move around a lot. So like a converted cargo trailer is excellent because it has wheels. It's not very expensive and you can do it pretty easily. Take the wood out, put a little insulation on or whatever. So if you want a safe space, I would suggest doing it on wheels. And I would also suggest not making it too fancy. Don't make your safe space fancy with bathrooms and windows and vents. Well, a vent maybe, yes, you need, but don't make it an RV because it's too likely that something bad is going to happen to it, and it's too expensive to replace easily. Okay, anyone else? How did your place go moldy so quickly? Curious if you know the cause. Lauren, there was a lot of stuff wrong with our house, the way that it was built. The stucco, the walls were under grade level. There was New Mexico mud, clay, squishing water underneath the walls. It's also made out of stucco, which absorbs the water. And we also had 5 people living and breathing and humidifying a 500 square foot house. And to top it all off, if you want a cherry on top, it was just monsoon season where there was, horrendous rain. So I don't know which of those factors was the biggest factor, but I think they probably all were a factor. I was not able to leave a question while watching the video. Just wanted to let you know maybe it was the same. Catherine, I am still live, so you are leaving a comment while I'm live. So you're welcome to ask a question. How did you first get sick? Do you really think people with MCS all have mold? Yes, Katie, I do think people with MCS all have mold. It is literally like a Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings journey when you start to do strict mold avoidance and you watch all of your other sensitivities and reactivities go away. The problem is most people will never get to that point because they can't do strict mold avoidance. Or I shouldn't say that, they can, but it's hard. it's hard to do. It's not even hard. It's a different paradigm. You have to be willing to live in a tent or live in the back of a truck or, you know, whatever. Some people say, oh, you don't have to do that. You can do it in a hotel. Simca did. I couldn't do that. Early on for me, I had to get more clear than that for it to work. I don't know. It's up for grabs. But yes, probably 5% of people with MCS maybe have like an original chemical insult, you know, people with Agent Orange poisoning or something. But I think in our day and age with the Lyme disease mixed with the MCS, it is mold. It really is, you guys. When you do strict mold avoidance, all of that stuff stops bothering you. Even EMF, electromagnetic fields, have 99% stopped bothering me. That's why this group is so strictly based on that approach, because it's like the diamond, the needle in the haystack, the diamond in the rough. And people have missed it and continue to miss it for years and years and years in normal alternative medicine. So it's time for us not to miss it anymore. How did I first get sick? I've been living in mold my whole life, 38 years. In Tahoe, one of the worst possible places. What's a good source to learn about outdoor toxins? Christine, great question. There is an article by Lisa Peterson. She is the executive director of Paradigm Change Organization. It's called Outdoor Toxins of Particular Interest to Mold Illness Patients. Outdoor Toxins of Particular Interest to Mold Illness Patients. If you Google that, you will get the article. I have read that article about 20 times. It's probably her most important article, if you ask me. Nobody asked me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most important one for me anyway. Google that. Outdoor toxins of particular importance to mold illness patients. Okay, you guys have any other questions? I'm happy to stay on for another 10 minutes or so if anybody else has questions. 6 people. Probably not a lot of questions from 6 people. But yes, this specific approach to mold avoidance is not easy. But I suggest that people, you know, if you're just starting off, do it, put your time and effort into figuring it out early on so you don't run out of money and then try to do it later. Really, really read the resources. I know you have brain fog. I know you can't read, but you still have to read. You still have to do it. You have to put the time in. Okay, anyone else have any other questions while we are at this? Or even just things you want me to talk about, even if it's not a question. Anything you want to hear me talk about, or you guys want to vote and see the tarantula again? Alright guys, unless there are any other questions, I'm going to wrap this up. For those of you who didn't see the whole video, you can tune in after this is done, and you can rewind it to the very beginning. I think we covered some really important topics today, and I hope you guys all have a blessed day, and thank you for hanging out with me for a little while.